Now we're going to jump on to family relationships and how those can be different. The definition of family is very complex and it's changing. Primary relationship is involved here, two principal parties. In some relationships, this is a husband and wife. Some people, it's domestic partners. Sometimes it's a grandma and a grandpa. Sometimes it may be siblings that are raising kids together. So can be very open-ended right now. It's kind of hard to pin down what does a family mean. And some people, their friends really become their families, especially if maybe their parents have passed away. Family, again, denotes a broader constellation, which means we're starting to bring our friends into that definition of family. The characteristics of a family: there's defined roles. We know what each person's responsible for. Some of those roles are very traditional. The husband goes to work, the woman stays home, raises the kids, and takes care of the household. There's also some families, and it's very common now, where the dad runs the household and stays home, and the woman goes out and makes the living. It's just a matter of those roles being defined. One is not a family and the other is not. They're both families. It's just they have different defined roles. There's a recognition of responsibilities in a family, that I have to do these things, you have to do these things. There's chores to be taken care of. The mom or the dad has to cook. Somebody else has to do the banking. We all have our responsibilities, and we recognize that that is our duty. We also have a shared history and a future. We can talk about things that have happened in the past. We can talk about vacations we're going to take in the future, or what are we going to do when the kids go to college, or who's going to get the pets when it's time to go away to college. We also have a shared living space in families. It doesn't really matter who our family is, but most often when we talk about our family, it's who we live with in a house. There's also established rules in families, things that you can do and cannot do, things you can talk about and things you can't talk about, people that you go to when you need something and people you don't go to when you need something. So all of those rules that are kind of unwritten. I'm sure you could think of several rules that are unwritten in your family. There's three family types. The first is going to be traditionals. And in traditional families, what you see is they share a basic belief system and philosophy of life. They're blending really of two people into a single couple. So they kind of think the same, and they do very little separately. They share a lot of time together. And then you have independent couples. And these are people who there's no restriction on individual freedom. You can pretty much do what you want. They would stress their individuality. The relationship is important, but never more important than the individual person's needs. Then there's also separate couples, and they live together, but they view their relationship as more a matter of convenience than a result of love or closeness. So it's we're together because it works better this way, and we don't necessarily love each other so deeply that we just can't live without each other. It's kind of like we would be okay without each other, but it works better that we're a team right now. So family and communication, there's a couple of different types of patterns. I want to make sure that you don't miss the family types of consensual, protective, pluralistic, and laissez-faire on the top of 272. Please read about that and write your journal entry based on that. Communication patterns, the first is the equality pattern. And what we have there is basically each person shares equally in communication. It's open and honest. There's not a bunch of power plays, and it's equitable. Each person is feeling like they're getting some equity out of it, which means there's more benefits than there are costs. The balanced split pattern means that each person has authority over different domains. So this person may be an expert in home repairs, and this other person might be an expert in financial decisions. One person might be an expert in travel arrangements. The other person's an expert in helping with homework and education concerns. The unbalanced split pattern is the next, and this means that one person is an expert in more areas than the other one. So dad knows more about most things, mom knows a couple of things, but dad knows the most, so I'm going to go to him. Or mom knows pretty much everything, but dad knows these two things, so I'll go to him for that. But there's one person who seems to be the most knowledgeable and a little bit more on the side of dominance. The monopoly pattern is probably the worst because this is the one person who has ultimate authority. They're going to be a little bit more controlling of the other people. They're going to be more of a monologuer. They're not going to be somebody who engages in dialogue, and they're going to lecture, not communicate. So that brings us to kind of the end of those three relationships. Now, there's certainly more information that we want to look at in there, but I'm not going to go over it. And something you should take a look at is the workplace communication, the networking relationships, and mentoring relationships. And there's a second PowerPoint which deals with violence, but we're also going to talk about jealousy and bullying on that slide. So on that lecture. So you want to also check that one out. We will talk again soon.